afternoon, everybody. It is Steve Lookner with Agenda Free TV, here to cover two things, give you double coverage today. We are going to cover President Trump signing an education order where, as I understand it, as has been reported, the order is going to call for a shutdown of the education department. Now, as I also understand it, President Trump cannot himself shut down the education department because it was created by Congress. But it's going to trim it, I guess. White House press secretary today said the department would be trimmed, significantly trimmed. We'll talk about that. So we're going to have coverage of that coming up. President Trump is supposed to have some sort of signing event, I believe. And also, there is actually a press conference, an NTSB press conference on the Baltimore Bridge collapse. Remember when the Key Bridge in Baltimore was hit by a cargo ship, a container ship? Last March, I think it was, about a year ago. Well, they announced, the NTSB, that they're having a press conference today to give an update about that. So what are they going to say? I don't know what they're going to say. Now, those two things might be at the same time. If they're at the same time, we'll cover one, and then we'll show you the other. Showing you both at once will not really work. So I apologize. I know that the NTSB press conference is at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, and those usually start on time. So my guess is, since the official start time I saw for, let me double check this. I thought the Trump event was 3:45. 3:30. No. So the President Trump participates in an education event and signs an executive order. That's scheduled for 4. And I would not be surprised if that's late. So maybe it'll work out that we will get to, maybe it'll work out that we'll get to watch the NTSB press conference and then watch live President Trump's education event and education department executive order. I'm hoping that happens. Then we can watch both live. Okay, anyways, so we are going to bring you coverage. I honestly have no idea what the update is going to be about the bridge thing. I just know that they said, I mean, here you can see right here, Media Advisory, March 20th media briefing on Francis Scott Key Bridge investigation. I really appreciate you guys being here for the broadcast. Let me shout out our moderators. We have Beth Mythical, Janet B., Ruth Krafasi moderating right now. I really appreciate that. Sabrina over on YouTube moderating. Thank you. We have also moderating Linda Belk. Hold on a second here. Linda Belk, Misha, Larry on X. Hold on, I gotta pull up something here. Okay. Over on Twitch, I Got That Fire, Matthew Kohai 3, and Surly Dev. And K. Lowry Body over there on Facebook modding. Thank you to all of our moderators. And thanks so much to Rick D. Thank you, Rick, for the gift membership. So nice of you. So let's talk about these events. And I'll take some of your comments on the air. Okay? How does that sound? So, real quick on the bridge thing, hopefully a lot of you remember this. I don't know what the update is going to be. They say they're going to give a media briefing on Francis Scott Key Bridge investigation. This happened last year in March. Media briefing Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time on the contact of the container ship Dolly with the Francis Scott Key Bridge. The Dolly was transiting out of Baltimore Harbor on March 26th, almost a year ago, when it experienced a loss of electrical power and propulsion and struck the southern pier supporting the central truss spans of the Francis Scott Key Bridge, which subsequently collapsed. 6 construction workers died as a result of bridge collapse. Just terrible. And they don't say what they're going to say, so we'll have to just see what they say. That was so bad. There could be criminal charges coming up in that too, but they wouldn't announce the criminal charges. They're not prosecutors. Marissa Pouliot says that was so horrible. I wonder, Melissa's asking about the bridge now. Isn't it going to be reconstructed? But I don't know. I don't know if I can get you a quick answer on what Key Bridge Rebuild. There's a website called Key Bridge Rebuild. I assume it's a public website. Yeah, this is a public website. Key Bridge Rebuild. You can go to the keybridgerebuild.com. Read all about it. Updates. Can I get you really quick? Well, the Key Bridge rebuild effort is under development. All right, well. I'm not going to take a lot of time on this, but you can go read about it there. Clearly, it's being rebuilt. I'm looking at an article from last year that says, that's from last year. I don't know. Anyways, it's an interesting question. I don't have an answer right now. I'm going to move on from that question. I'm making the call. Now, so that press conference is coming up at 4. We'll have to just watch and see what they say. Now let's talk about the education stuff, Department of Education stuff. As you can see from AP, Trump will order a plan to dismantle the education department, advancing a campaign promise. To repeat, he cannot shut it down himself. And actually, earlier today, you can see here from the Washington Post, White House says order will trim education department, not shut it down as Trump promised. As President Trump prepares to sign an executive order aimed at closing the education department, his press secretary today acknowledged that the administration cannot do this on its own. White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt told reporters that the department will not be completely shut down, which would require congressional action, but said a smaller version will continue to administer critical functions. She said those functions included the student loan program, Pell Grants, civil rights enforcement, and major grant programs of Title I and IDEA, which helps pay the cost of educating students with disabilities. Together, those programs represent the vast majority of what the department does. We're greatly reducing the size and scale of the department, she said. Let's read a little more about this. It might be a little confusing. I'm a little confused about what exactly is going to happen. So you can see here, AP says President Trump plans to sign an executive order calling for the dismantling of the education department, advancing a campaign promise to eliminate an agency that's been a longtime target of conservatives. Trump has derided the education department as wasteful and polluted by liberal ideology. However, completing its dismantling is most likely impossible without an act of Congress, which created it in 1979. A White House fact sheet said the order would direct Secretary of Education Linda McMahon to take all necessary steps to facilitate the closure of the Department of Education and return education authority to the states while continuing to ensure the effective and uninterrupted delivery of services, programs, and benefits on which Americans rely. Trump's action will make the department much smaller than it is today, but it will continue managing federal student loans and Pell Grants, the White House press secretary said today. Other critical department duties, such as enforcement of civil rights, will remain, she said, but she did not say how they would be fulfilled. Also, Trump's Republican administration has been gutting the agency. Its workforce is being slashed in half, and there have been deep cuts to the Office of Civil Rights and the Institute of Education Sciences, which gathers data on the nation's academic progress. Advocates for public schools said eliminating the department would leave children behind in an American education system that is fundamentally unequal. Representative Bobby Scott of Virginia, top Democrat on the House Committee on Education and the Workforce, said Trump's order is dangerous and illegal and will disproportionately hurt low-income students, students of color, and those with disabilities. The White House has not spelled out formally which department functions could be handed off to other departments or eliminated altogether. The department sends billions of dollars a year to schools and oversees $1.6 trillion in federal student loans. Currently, much of the department's work revolves around managing money, both its extensive student loan portfolio and a range of aid programs for colleges and school districts, like school meals and support for homeless students. The agency is key in overseeing civil rights enforcement. I'll read a little more of this. I'm going to take some comments from you guys just to get some background here. States and districts already control local schools, including curriculum. But some conservatives have pushed to cut strings attached to federal money and provide it to states as block grants to be used at their discretion. Let's see here. Block granting has raised questions about vital funding sources, including Title I, the largest source of federal money to America's K-12 schools. Families of children with disabilities have despaired over what could come of the federal department's work protecting their rights. Federal funding makes up a relatively small portion of public school budgets, roughly 14%. The money often supports supplemental programs for vulnerable students, such as the McKinney-Vento program for homeless students or Title I for low-income schools. All right, I want to take some comments from you guys on this. I don't like to read that much at once, but I like to get some background out there. That's just like a little, we'll talk a little more about what the department does. But again, they do not control the curriculum of local schools. And most of the money spent on local schools is not coming from the federal government. Ponicus thinks they want the privatization of the education system, and this is a big step in that direction. Our viewer Silky Mustache says these people send their kids to expensive private schools so they don't care. James R. says state's job now. My nickname says the more money they spend on the Department of Ed, the lower the test scores get. Tony Stark says he's destroying America in front of us. W.P. Fuller thinks the DOA doesn't do anything. We should talk a little more about that. Hold on a moment here. So AP actually has an article on what the Education Department does. So you can see it says, here's what it does. Trump is planning to order a shutdown of the Education Department. Here's what it does. The agencies, by the way, in the week since he took office, they say, Trump's administration has already cut the department staff in half and overhauled much of the department's work. Trump's advisor, Elon Musk's Doge, has cut dozens of contracts it dismissed as woke and wasteful. It gutted the Institute of Education Sciences, which gathers data on the nation's academic progress. It does that. The agency's main role is financial. Annually, the Department of Education distributes billions of dollars in federal money to colleges and schools and manages the federal student loan portfolio. Closing the department would mean redistributing each of these duties to another agency. The Education Department also plays an important regulatory role in services for students, ranging from those with disabilities to low-income and homeless kids. Indeed, federal education money is central to Trump's plans for colleges and schools. Trump has vowed to cut off federal money for schools and colleges that push critical race theory, transgender insanity, and other inappropriate racial, sexual, or political content, and to reward states and schools that end teacher tenure and support universal school choice programs. Federal funding makes up a relatively small portion of public school budgets, roughly 14%. Colleges and universities are more reliant on it, though through research grants along with the federal financial aid that helps students pay their tuition. Here are some of the key programs of the Education Department. Student loans and financial aid. The Education Department manages approximately $1.5 trillion in student loan debt for over 40 million borrowers. It also oversees the Pell Grant, which provides aid to students below a certain income threshold, and administers the free application for federal student aid, which universities use to allocate financial aid. Okay. Also, the department has an Office of Civil Rights, and they conduct investigations and issue guidance on how civil rights laws should be applied, such as for LGBTQ plus students and students of color. The office also oversees a large data collection project that tracks disparities in resources, course access, and discipline for students of different racial and social economic groups. Trump has suggested a different interpretation of the Office of Civil Rights' role. Under his administration, the department has instructed the office to prioritize complaints of anti-Semitism above all else, and has opened investigations into colleges and school sports leagues for allowing transgender athletes to compete on women's teams. In his campaign platform, Trump said he would pursue civil rights cases to stop schools from discriminating on the basis of race. He's described diversity and equity policies in education as explicit, unlawful discrimination. Let's see here. While the Education Department does not directly accredit colleges and universities, it oversees the system by reviewing all federally recognized accrediting agencies. Money for schools. Much of the Education Department money for K-12 schools goes through large federal programs such as Title I for low-income schools and the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. Those programs support services for students with disabilities, lower class sizes with additional teaching positions, and pay for social workers and other non-teaching roles in schools. During his campaign, Trump called for shifting those functions to the states. He has not offered details on how the agency's core functions of sending federal money to local districts and schools would be handled. The Heritage Foundation's Project 2025, a sweeping proposal outlining a far-right vision for the country, offered a blueprint. It suggested sending oversight of programs for kids with disabilities and low-income children first to the Department of Health and Human Services before eventually phasing out the funding and converting it to no-strings-attached grants to states. All right. Anyways, Sorry, again, I don't like to read that much, but at the same time, I think there's a lot of important background here. So I was trying to kind of go through as fast as I can. But that's like a general overview of the main functions of the Department of Education. At around 4, although it might start late, President Trump is going to sign this executive order, which is supposed to significantly downsize the Department of Education. And supposed to speak. So we were going to be covering that. Also, I think it might start a little late because his events usually start a little late. Also at 4, the NTSB will be doing a press conference update on the ship hitting the Baltimore Key Bridge last year, which knocked down the bridge. I don't know what they're going to say in this update. Saw them announce. They announced yesterday they're going to have having this update, this press conference. We'll be covering that for you too. If both events are going on at the same time, we'll obviously have to cover one and then cover the other. Let me take some more comments from you guys, though. No, the ship has been moved. I believe the major. I don't know if literally all the bridge debris has been removed. Have they left any of the bridge debris in the water? I mean, the ship has been moved. The ship was moved fairly. It was moved. I think it wasn't moved like recently. Moved shortly after. I think the collapse. I don't know. I have to look this up. I see one thing here. Let's see here. There's an article from last year about the bridge, which says, it's an article from WBAL from last June talking about how the last large steel truss segment of the collapsed bridge was removed. And, oh, by the way, this article from WBAL said that last year, the state of Maryland said it could take as long as 4 years to rebuild the Key Bridge. Okay? That's a good question. I don't really want to get into it now totally. It's an interesting question of like how much. I mean, some of the bridge didn't collapse, but I assume, did they just remove the whole thing? Or is there some stuck in the ground they don't remove? But I mean, if they're going to build a new bridge, I don't know. Did they literally remove everything? Or is some of it still in there? I don't know. Maybe we have people in Baltimore who know this. Are some of the supports still there? Sorry, I don't know more about the exact state of the bridge. Ramona Scott says yes. Eric Kennedy says the concrete pillars are there but will be removed. New supports near land. Praise 3 Dale says, I wonder what the cost will be to rebuild the bridge. NYY7 thinks they will announce the cause of the crash today. Shadow says it will take years to rebuild. According to Wikipedia, the Maryland Department of Transportation said that they were trying to they've announced plans to replace the bridge by the fourth quarter of 2028 at an estimated cost of $1.7 billion to $1.9 billion. The original bridge cost in 2024 dollars $743 million. The actual price was $141 million, but that was years ago. Leslie Ladyhawk says, how can it take 4 years? Couldn't it be done faster? That I don't know. I do not know. Hang on a moment here. Okay. Let's talk. So, schedule. It's 3:30 right now. It is 3:30. At 4, we have the press conference from the NTSB. And sometime around then, President Trump doing this education event where he signs this executive order about the Department of Education. It's scheduled for 4. Will it start at 4? I don't know. By the way, thanks to Dodger Blue for your support. Hey, thanks for getting a mug. I hope you enjoy it. Dodger Blue, thanks so much. Thanks also Rabbit, our member, and Betty Eftergood, and PZ Papa Zulu, who thinks states can do better and Department of Education failed, and says Trump campaigned on this. Thank you, Gordon Gott, our member, and Reddy Samedi, our member. One of our viewers mentioned something I hadn't seen yet. I want to mention this real quick. Hold on. Hang on. Yeah, real quick, I just want to mention this. One of our viewers mentioned this in the chat. I hadn't seen this yet. Up to 80 global news, a bunch of Canadian outlets are reporting that up to 80 Teslas were damaged at an Ontario Tesla dealership in Hamilton. I'd like to get the original announcement for you. I have it right here. Hamilton Police Service. Oops. Hamilton, Ontario Police. Look, let me show you. Hamilton police are currently investigating a series of mischiefs that occurred at a vehicle dealership on the Hamilton Mountain. On Wednesday, Hamilton police were called to the Tesla dealership located at 999 Upper Wentworth Street for a report of damage to some of the vehicles in the store's inventory. Officers responded and discovered upwards of 80 Tesla vehicles, which were parked outdoors, had been damaged, including but not limited to deep scratches and punctured tires. Police are currently reviewing CCTV camera footage and are asking the public for their assistance in solving this crime. This is the latest report I've heard of. There have been a bunch of cases of vandalism against Teslas in the U.S. I don't know if I've heard one in Canada before. This might be the most vehicles I've heard damaged. So this just came out today. Thanks to the viewer for mentioning it. Bab says, I don't like vandalism. There was an announcement by, hold on a second here. Where is it here? The Justice Department. Today. If I can find it here. Where is this? Where is this? Here. Attorney General Pam Bondi announces severe charges against violent Tesla arsonists. It's a little off topic, but I want to cover it anyway. Today, Attorney General Pamela Bondi, says the Justice Department, announced charges against 3 individuals responsible for the violent destruction of Tesla properties. All 3 defendants will face the full force of the law for using Molotov cocktails to set fire to Tesla cars and charging stations. Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, said the days of committing crimes without consequence have ended. Let this be a warning. If you join this wave of domestic terrorism against Tesla properties, the Department of Justice will put you behind bars. One defendant, according to the Justice Department, one defendant, also armed with a suppressed AR-15 rifle, was arrested after throwing approximately 8 Molotov cocktails at a Tesla dealership located in Salem, Oregon. Another was arrested in Loveland, Colorado, after attempting to light Teslas on fire with Molotov cocktails. In Charleston, South Carolina, a 3rd defendant wrote profane messages against President Trump around Tesla charging stations before lighting the charging stations on fire with Molotov cocktails. Each defendant faces serious charges, carrying a minimum penalty of 5 years and up to 20 years in prison. So we might do a stream on that at some point. There's been a bunch of news about it. I might do a separate stream on it because there's just been a bunch of these incidents. It's not the topic of this stream. But it's possible that we would do one. Now, I haven't seen this. Richard Cranium on X says there is a video of X on man pulling I'll say number 2 from his pants and wiping it on a Cybertruck. I have not seen that. I have not seen that. That's what one of our viewers says. I don't think I want to see that one. Seize the Day in Canada says Tesla stores are being targeted in Ontario. Hopefully our weak government decides to charge them as domestic terrorists. That's Seize the Day from Canada. Hang on a second here. Where is, by the way, I was trying to show you something. Yeah, one of our viewers mentioned this. I just want to mention this as well. This is from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. Tesla Cybertruck recall. I don't want to get caught up on this, but you may have seen something about this today. Exterior trim panel can detach while driving. A detached panel can become a road hazard, increasing the risk of a crash. Number of units affected, 46,096. As I understand, that's roughly all of them. I don't know if it's exactly all or roughly all. Tesla is recalling certain Cybertruck vehicles. The cant rail, a stainless steel exterior trim panel, can delaminate and detach from the vehicle. Tesla service will replace the cant rail assembly free of charge. The recall, estimated percentage with defect, 1%. The recall population includes all 2024 and 2025 Cybertruck vehicles manufactured from November 2023, November 13, 2023 to February 27, 2025. If the cant rail stainless steel panel separates from the vehicle while in drive, it could create a road hazard for following motorists and increase their risk of injury or collision. The cant rail assembly is affixed to the vehicle with fasteners on affected vehicles. The cant rail stainless steel panel may delaminate at the adhesive joint, which may cause the panel to separate from the vehicle. Anyways, if you own a Cybertruck, please be sure to check into this recall. It very well might affect your vehicle and you can get a fix. Saranya says recall is usually just a computer update. I know for many Tesla recalls, it's something where people don't have to bring their car in, and it's like a software update takes care of it. That is not one of these. This you would have to take your car in and get it physically replaced, the part physically replaced or fixed, however, whatever it is. All right, we've kind of have digressed a little bit, so I want to bring it back. Whoops, Lee says separates from the vehicle when drives doesn't sound good. Well, hopefully everybody with the issue can get it fixed. Sugino, our viewer, thinks mechanical fasteners are best. We have right now, we're waiting for two things, which are coming up very shortly. By the way, thanks Seize the Day for the gift membership. Thank you. Thanks HomeAwares for your support from the UK. I really appreciate that. Thanks Switch the Channel, who says, is our children learning? Thank you. So it is 3:43 p.m. Eastern Time. At 4 o'clock, very shortly, we have the NTSB update press conference on that accident last year where the container ship crashed into the Key Bridge and caused it to collapse in Baltimore. They got something to announce today. I don't know exactly what they're going to announce. I forget there was a previous, maybe we can check real quick the previous updates. Anyways, but there's going to be a new update. I mean, we might have even covered this before. There was an investigative update on June 2024. Anyways, if I have a second, I'll get into that. I think we might have covered it, but they're going to update. So I assume they have something important to say. I don't think they're not just doing. I don't think they're just doing an update for the heck of it. And then also, it's scheduled for 4 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to guess it's going to start a little late, but who knows? President Trump is signing an executive order on the Department of Education, which is expected to severely downsize the department. The administration said the press secretary said today that they can't shut it down without they can't do it on its own. So you can see here from Washington Post, White House says order will trim Education Department, not shut it down as Trump promised. As President Trump prepares to sign an executive order aimed at closing the Education Department, his press secretary acknowledged that the administration cannot do this on its own. White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt told reporters today that the department will not be completely shut down, which would require congressional action, but said a smaller version of the department will continue to administer critical functions. She said those functions included the student loan program, Pell Grants, civil rights enforcement, and major grant programs of Title I and IDEA, which helps pay the cost of educating students with disabilities. Together, those programs represent the vast majority of what the department does. She says we're greatly reducing the scale and size of the department. So how is this all going to play out? I'm not sure. Super Sounds thinks rural states are going to suffer hard from this. So we're going to cover that. We're going to cover that live. Well, and it's possible both events will be live at the same time. And if that's the case, we'll just cover one and cover the other. You can reach me at @Lookner on X. We're bringing you live coverage. I want to say thanks again to our moderators who are here. We have Janet B. We have Ruth Krafasi. We have, they are on YouTube. Linda Belk, Misha, Larry on X. Over on Twitch we have I Got That Fire, David Green, Big Ball of Yarn, Matthew Kohai 3, and Surly Dev. Thank you. K. Larry Body, Margaret Riley on Facebook. Thank you so much for moderating over there. Also, thanks to Laughing Boy for subscribing. Thank you so much, Laughing Boy. And hang on a moment here. Give me 2 seconds. We'll get into a little more talk about the Education Department. We may have to do I've been thinking about it. We might do a broadcast on the attacks on the Tesla vandalism going on. There's been a lot of it. There's been a bunch of it. Okay. I think there was a White House fact sheet on this too. Bay says that's domestic terrorism, the Tesla vandalism. Where is... I'm not going to worry about it right now. Let me show you this. Here's a little more reporting on what's going on. What to know about Trump's plan to abolish the Education Department. This is the Washington Post. Since his campaign, President Trump has been promising to abolish the Department of Education. Today, he is set to sign an executive order that will shrink but not close the agency. Closing the department, an off-and-on Republican goal since it was created in 1979, would require congressional approval, and it's highly unlikely Trump would have sufficient support for that. Nonetheless, his order will direct the Education Secretary, Linda McMahon, to take all necessary steps to facilitate the dismantling of the department, according to the White House. Trump and other Republicans argue the department has failed on its mission to improve student performance and is a tool of a woke culture war. The order also will direct McMahon to return education authority to the states, a White House fact sheet said. Though education has long been the responsibility of state and local governments, which provide about 90% of the funding and set most of the rules, just to be clear. What does the Education Department do? While states and local school boards set curriculum, set graduation requirements, and pay the lion's share of K-12 education, the federal agency, the Department of Education, plays an important role in higher education finance and in supplementing funding for many school districts. So it doesn't set the curriculum or the graduation requirements. For K-12 education, the Department of Education administers federal grant programs, including the $18.4 billion Title I program that provides supplemental funding to high-poverty K-12 schools, as well as the $15.2 billion program that helps cover the cost of education for students with disabilities. Those programs come with rules, and conservatives have talked about alternatives that would give the states more freedom to spend it as they choose. The department also oversees the $1.6 trillion federal student loan program and sets rules for what colleges must do to participate, and it runs the Pell Grant program. It also runs achievement tests, dubbed the nation's report card, and collects statistics on enrollment, crime in schools, staffing, and other topics. The agency is also charged with enforcing civil rights laws that bar discrimination in federally funded schools on the basis of race, sex, and other factors. The Biden administration used that power, for instance, to prohibit schools from discriminating against students on the basis of gender identity. Trump is now using it in the opposite direction, threatening to cut federal funding from schools that allow trans girls and women to compete on women's sports teams. Okay. This is interesting. During the Bush and Obama administrations, the Department of Education had a stronger role in K-12 schools, administering the No Child Left Behind statute, which required annual tests and various interventions for schools that failed to reach certain benchmarks. Schools that didn't comply with the system risked losing federal funding, but most of those rules were rolled back at the end of the Obama administration. This is also very interesting. It is a small department. The Education Department has the smallest staff of any federal department. At the start of the administration, there were just over 4,100 people, but layoffs and other efforts have cut the numbers nearly in half. Its annual discretionary budget is about $79 billion. And really quick, why has Trump advocated for closing the department? Trump and other Republicans argue that over its 45-year history, the agency has spent trillions of dollars over decades, but failed to increase student test scores, which have largely stagnated. The White House fact sheet is replete with examples of substandard academic performance. They also argue that eliminating the department would help reduce the size and the cost of federal government. They say the agency burdens states and local schools with unnecessary paperwork, and that Democrats have used the department to impose a liberal agenda on schools. One other thing I want to point out here from this article from the Washington Post: if the department closes, would its programs disappear? Many Americans fear that closing the Education Department would mean federal money and programs that support schools would disappear. The administration has already cut some contracts for programs supported by discretionary funding. The department could remain open and still see more cuts. Linda McMahon, the Department of Education Secretary, has said that the major programs that support K-12 districts, like Title I for high-poverty schools and IDEA for students with disabilities, would not be cut. On Wednesday, a senior administration official said Title I, IDEA, and the student loan program will not be touched. Still, closing the education department will surely have symbolic impact. There would no longer be a member of the cabinet focused solely on education issues and empowered to speak to Americans about the challenges schools face. It would be harder for the federal government to elevate education issues or press for change in schools. So will they keep the same programs and the same funding? I don't know. You can see there that the administration is claiming that they will keep that Title I for high poverty schools, IDEA for students with disabilities, and the student loan program will not be touched. We'll see what happens. All right, so very soon, we're supposed to get 7 minutes until the press conference from NTSB and until the start time, supposedly, of the Trump event. By the way, do I have any video of that yet? Oh, hold on. Hang on a moment. The NTSB, give me one moment. I have video from the NTSB thing, if you give me 2 seconds, but here it is. Oh, they're setting up, but let me just show. Let me just get this on the screen. Hold on, I got to get this on the screen. Give me a moment. The NTSB briefing is about to start. So let me just get set up here. Okay. Thanks for your patience. Where do I put this? Now, you can see here, you know what? While I'm waiting for this, let me just make sure this other thing is working too. Hang on 2 seconds here. Okay, that's good. We got that ready to go. Now this, what's happening with this? Oh, here we go. Look, NTSB media briefing, number 3, coming up. And I'm also keeping an eye for when we get President Trump doing his appearance during his signing the education department, signing the executive order. That's not available yet. So I have to watch for both of these things. If what I'll say is, if this NTSB thing is going on and it starts before President Trump, and then President Trump starts speaking, I'll cut over to President Trump, then we can watch the rest of the NTSB thing. Okay? Because they might be on at the same time. We good with sound? Let me just do a quick sound check here. You might hear 2 of me for a second. Sound check. Sound check. Hold on. Sound check. Testing 1, 2, 3. Hold on. Yeah, we're good. That's great. Sound is working. Okay. Here we go, everybody. Thank you, Julio Limos, our member. I appreciate that, Julio. It's a little strange today because we have 2 events going on at the same time, and I don't know exactly when President Trump is starting. But this is going to start in like 2 minutes. So remember, this NTSB briefing is some sort of update on that incident where the cargo ship hit the Baltimore Key Bridge and collapsed the bridge, 6 construction workers died. That was a very heavily used bridge. Terrible. That happened a year ago, basically, roughly a year ago. They're going to give some update on this today. So I don't know what they're going to say. And that starts in about a minute or so. Well, let me get something else here. Hold on. The other thing I want is to do is this. Got to get that prepared. Okay. Lyle Chipperson says NTSB investigations frequently last a very long time. Augie says, I hope they're close to a final report after 1 year. That's going to start at any moment now. Anna says, I can't believe that is already a year ago. Again, President Trump's event has not started yet. I am looking out for it. Hey, thanks to Leslie Ladyhawk, our member. Thank you, Leslie Ladyhawk. I really appreciate you guys all being here. Somebody ordered a shirt. Thanks to whoever ordered an AFTV shirt. And really, with the Trump event, I mean, technically the start time was 4, but I basically just have to keep looking. It'll just start. So I'll keep my eyes out. All right, again, just waiting for this to start. Chaser says, Trump is always late. Yeah, his events start late a lot. I mean, a bunch of Biden events started late too. I don't have a comparison between the two on who starts later, but President Trump's events can start pretty late. I am also checking for some other updates. We didn't even talk about Turkey. There's this whole thing going on in Turkey where the government took into custody the mayor of Istanbul, who was expected to be the main challenger to President Erdogan in the next election, if Erdogan runs. There's protests there now and stuff. So at some point we might stream about that or cover it during another stream. Haven't really gotten to it today. NetBlocks posted that it's been 40 hours since Turkey imposed widespread social media and messaging restrictions. Social media and messaging restrictions. Oh, I have an update for you, guys. Kyle Cheney of Politico reports a federal judge in Maryland has just barred Doge from accessing Social Security, saying the group is on a fishing expedition that jeopardizes people's private data. Again, that is from Kyle Cheney of Politico. He posted a link to the document. I'll post the link myself. I haven't even read it, but is this the right link? Yes. It's a whole long document, but I'll post a link to it anyway. That's via Kyle Cheney. So it's a ruling. I would assume there's a chance that the Trump administration might appeal it. Okay, this still hasn't started yet. It is now 4:03. So again, we're waiting on two things any moment now. The NTSB media briefing on last year's incident where a cargo ship struck the Baltimore Key Bridge and the bridge collapsed, and President Trump doing an education event where he signs an executive order which is supposed to severely downsize the Department of Education. Homer Simpson says, I was hoping the NTSB would be punctual. Yeah, I mean, there was somebody already doing like a sound check and stuff. And so I would assume they'll be like any time now with them. I can't imagine it's going to be that much longer before it starts. It seems that there's a podium there and I can see another shot. So it's about to happen. And while that's going on, I'll just watch for the Trump thing. And if that starts, I'll just go to that and we'll come back to the NTSB after. Sorry, I don't, with these events, I just have to, once they're about to start, I just have to keep my eye on it because I don't want to start talking about something else and then we miss the start of the event. Eric Zimmerman says March 26th was the accident date of 2024. Where was it? Yes, March 26th. All right, we're waiting. 4:05 p.m. now. Waiting on both. Waiting on both events. Michelle Batten says, I wonder what the NTSB will say. I mean, is this like their big update? Will they be like, this is, why the ship lost power and this is what was going on in the ship and maybe something about who's to blame. I don't know. S. Brown says, hard to believe it's been almost a year since the collapse. It's also, we were reading that bridge is supposed to be replaced maybe by like the end of 2028. That was a really heavily trafficked bridge. So just think about the impact that has on the traffic situation. And that the bridge is just gone for around 4 years. Be over 4 years. Be like 4.5 years. Loki says, so much has happened in just a year. Terry Rose says, Japan's was replaced in 2 weeks. Well, I don't know the specifics about that. And I don't know the specifics about this, what's required to replace it. Big project, though. Okay, here it is. Hey, NTSB about to start. NTSB, we're live. We're live. NTSB is live. And I'll keep an eye out for Trump. This is in Washington, D.C.
Good afternoon. NTSB Chairman Jennifer Homendy will brief you today on the collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. Next week marks 1 year since the striking of the Dali container ship with the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore. The bridge subsequently collapsed into the Patapsco River, killing 6 construction crew members and injuring another, as well as 1 person on board the vessel. I want to once again extend our deepest sympathies to those who lost loved ones or were injured in this terrible tragedy. Today, we're issuing 4 urgent safety recommendations to bridge owners, the Federal Highway Administration, the United States Coast Guard, and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Specifically, we're urging 30 owners of 68 bridges in 19 states to perform a vulnerability assessment of their bridge's risk of catastrophic collapse from a vessel collision. Determine whether they need to implement countermeasures to reduce vulnerability, report their findings to the NTSB, and if warranted, implement a comprehensive risk reduction plan that includes, at a minimum, short and long-term strategies to reduce the probability of a bridge collapse from a vessel collision. We're also urging the Federal Highway Administration, in coordination with the U.S. Coast Guard and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, to provide guidance and assistance to bridge owners on evaluating and reducing the risk of a bridge collapse from a vessel collision. As part of our investigation, we completed a vulnerability assessment of the Francis Scott Key Bridge ourselves to determine how susceptible it was to collapse from a vessel collision, taking into account engineering and shipping advances since the Key Bridge first opened in 1977. This vulnerability assessment is essentially a mathematical risk model used to determine how susceptible a bridge is to collapse from a vessel collision, and it's not new. The American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials, or AASHTO, developed and published the vulnerability assessment calculation for new bridges on the National Highway System in 1991 in response to our investigation of the Sunshine Skyway Bridge collapse in Tampa Bay, Florida. The state of Maryland was on AASHTO's executive committee at the time and served on AASHTO's Highway Subcommittee on Bridges and Structures, which developed those standards in 1991 and revised them in 2009. Included in the 1991 standards was a recommendation from AASHTO that all bridge owners conduct a vulnerability assessment of existing bridges to evaluate the risk of catastrophic collapse in the event of a vessel collision and take action. AASHTO reiterated that recommendation to states again in 2009, and I want to read the quote from the AASHTO guidance in 2009. All remaining existing bridges over navigable waterways with commercial barge and ship traffic should be evaluated using a vulnerability assessment in accordance with risk analysis procedures contained in this guide. The vulnerability assessments would meet NTSB recommendations to AASHTO, FHWA, and other federal agencies for improved bridge safety based on previous vessel collision accidents involving bridge failures. AASHTO continues on. Based on the vulnerability assessment evaluations of existing bridges within the state system, a screening process based on the estimated annual frequency of collapse can be used to identify and rank high-risk bridges and to prioritize vulnerable structures for potential rehabilitation, retrofit, peer protection countermeasures, or replacement. The Maryland Transportation Authority never ran the calculation on the Key Bridge, and as of October 2024, they still haven't on the Chesapeake Bay Bridge. Had they ran the calculation on the Francis Scott Key Bridge, the MDTA would have been aware that the bridge was almost 30 times greater than the risk threshold AASHTO sets for critical essential bridges. 30 times greater. And almost 15 times greater for Pier 17, which the Dolly struck, as well as Pier 18. What's frustrating is, not only did MDTA fail to conduct the vulnerability assessment on the Key Bridge, they did not provide, nor were they able to provide, the NTSB with the data needed to conduct the assessment, including the characteristics of vessel traffic passing under the bridge, vessel transit speeds, vessel loading characteristics, waterway and navigable channel geometry, water depths, environmental conditions, bridge geometry, pier protection systems, and ultimate lateral capacity of the bridge piers. We asked them for that data. They didn't have it. We had to develop that data ourselves with the help of our federal partners at the Federal Highway Administration. And I want to take a moment to thank the team at the Federal Highway Administration for all their assistance on this investigation. We conclude in our report that had the MDTA conducted a vulnerability assessment of the Key Bridge based on recent vessel traffic, the MDTA would have been able to proactively identify strategies to reduce the risk of a collapse and loss of lives associated with a vessel collision with the bridge. Like the Key Bridge, other bridges throughout the United States were designed before AASHTO's 1991 guidance. To understand the scope of that risk, we asked the Federal Highway Administration to identify bridges that cross navigable waterways and are used by ocean-going vessels like the Dolly, and gather information about protection devices in place for those bridges, like dolphins, like fender systems. We then narrowed that list based on when the bridge was built, whether it had a vertical clearance of at least 80 feet, and whether it had substructures such as piers in a waterway. We also evaluated vessel traffic transiting under the bridges. We repeated the same process for bridges owned by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. And as a result, we identified 72 bridges in 19 states, managed by 30 bridge owners that were likely not designed and built to AASHTO specifications. Owners of 4 of those bridges performed a recent vulnerability assessment and are either implementing a plan to reduce their bridge's vulnerability or will be doing so in the future. The remaining 68 bridges that have not undergone a vulnerability assessment based on recent vessel traffic have an unknown level of risk of collapse from a vessel collision, which is why we're recommending that those 30 bridge owners take action now. Frankly, we've been sounding the alarm on this since the tragedy occurred, and in testimony before the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee last April. We need action. Public safety depends on it. So the 30 bridge owners who will receive our urgent recommendations are the Bay Area Toll Authority, Caltrans, the Golden Gate Bridge Highway and Transportation District, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, the Florida Department of Transportation, the Georgia Department of Transportation, Skyway Concession Company, LLC, the Louisiana Department of Transportation and Development, the New Orleans Public Belt Railroad, the Maryland Transportation Authority, the Massachusetts Department of Transportation, the Mackinac Bridge Authority, the New Hampshire Department of Transportation, the Delaware River Port Authority, the New Jersey Turnpike Authority, MTA Bridges and Tunnels, the New York City Department of Transportation, the New York State Bridge Authority, the Ogdensburg Bridge and Port Authority, the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, the Seaway International Bridge Corporation, the Thousand Islands Bridge Authority, the Ohio Department of Transportation, the Oregon Department of Transportation, the Pennsylvania Turnpike Commission, the Rhode Island Turnpike and Bridge Authority, the Harris County Toll Road Authority, the Texas Department of Transportation, the Washington State Department of Transportation, and the Wisconsin Department of Transportation. Now, I want to emphasize, because we don't want to see headlines naming a bridge of being at risk of collapse or imminent risk of collapse. A risk level above the acceptable threshold doesn't mean a collapse from a vessel collision is an absolute certainty. Likewise, a bridge design with a risk level below the acceptable threshold doesn't guarantee that a collapse from a vessel collision won't occur. What we are telling bridge owners is that they need to know the risk and determine what actions they need to take to ensure safety. Again, I want to reiterate our exact findings today and all 4 urgent safety recommendations verbatim. For finding number 1, had the Maryland Transportation Authority conducted a vulnerability assessment of the Francis Scott Key Bridge based on recent vessel traffic, as recommended by the 1991 and 2009 American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials Guide Specifications, the MDTA would have been aware that this critical essential bridge was above the AASHTO threshold of risk for catastrophic collapse from a vessel collision when the Dolly collision occurred. Finding number 2, had the Maryland Transportation Authority conducted a vulnerability assessment of the Francis Scott Key Bridge using the American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials Method 2 vulnerability assessment calculation, the MDTA would have had information to proactively identify strategies to reduce the risk of a collapse and loss of lives associated with a vessel collision with the bridge. Finding number 3, the 30 owners of 68 bridges over navigable waterways frequented by ocean-going vessels are likely unaware of their bridge's risk of catastrophic collapse from a vessel collision and the potential need to implement countermeasures to reduce the bridge's vulnerability. Urgent Recommendation 1 to the Federal Highway Administration. In coordination with the U.S. Coast Guard and U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, establish an interdisciplinary team, including representatives from the Federal Highway Administration, U.S. Coast Guard, and U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and provide guidance and assistance to bridge owners on evaluating and reducing the risk of a bridge collapse from a vessel collision. Urgent Recommendation number 2. The U.S. Coast Guard and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers as the recipient of Recommendation number 2. Support the Federal Highway Administration in establishing an interdisciplinary team and provide guidance and assistance to bridge owners on evaluating and reducing the risk of a bridge collapse from a vessel collision. Urgent Recommendation number 3 to the 30 bridge owners. Calculate the AASHTO Method 2 annual frequency of collapse for the bridges identified in Appendix B of the report that we issued today, for which you are responsible, and inform the NTSB whether the probability of collapse is above the AASHTO threshold. If the calculations that you performed in response to the safety recommendation indicate that a bridge has an annual frequency of collapse greater than the AASHTO threshold, develop and implement a comprehensive risk reduction plan that includes, at a minimum, guidance and assistance from the Federal Highway Administration, U.S. Coast Guard, and U.S. Army Corps of Engineers interdisciplinary team. And the 4th recommendations, develop short and long-term strategies to reduce the probability of a potential bridge collapse from a vessel collision. Now, a few things about the status of the investigation itself. We're releasing over 1,000 pages of investigative material in the public docket today, including our bridge factual report and some interviews. Next week, we intend to release the hazardous materials, meteorological, and survival factors factual reports, as well as a study conducted by our Office of Research and Engineering on vessel size increases and associated safety risk. In the next few weeks, we intend to publicly release the voyage data recorder audio transcripts and associated data. We're still finalizing the engineering, nautical operations, and anchorage factual reports. We'll then begin working on our analysis and developing our findings, our probable cause, and our safety recommendations with a final report released this fall. Now, with that, I will take some questions. Please raise your hand. I'll call on you. Please state your name and your affiliation.
My name is Jessica Babb. I'm with Fox 45 out of Baltimore. So I know you said that the MDTA did not provide or not calculate these risk assessments on the Key Bridge. The Dolly was a sizable cargo ship. So had the MDTA conducted this assessment?
Hold on. I think President Trump is about to come out right
The
now.
President
Here,
of the United
all right,
States.
let's switch over to President Trump right now.
Yeah, so
We're
these
switching over to
bridge
President
owners
Trump
need to
right
be
now.
looking at recent
Hang
vessel
on.
traffic. Things have changed.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone. And I'd like to start by saying that our country is doing very well. Things are, as you can see, doing quite well. Please sit down. Before we begin, I just want to announce that I signed a proclamation a few moments ago honoring the 250th anniversary of Patrick Henry's famous speech to the Second Virginia Convention, in which he declared very well-known, very famous words, "Give me liberty or give me death." Has anyone heard the phrase? I think most of you have. And moments ago, I also signed an executive order to dramatically increase production of critical minerals and rare earths. It's a big thing in this country, and as you know, we're also signing agreements in various locations to unlock rare earths and minerals and lots of other things all over the world, but in particular Ukraine. We're doing very well with regard to Ukraine and Russia, and one of the things we are doing is signing a deal very shortly with respect to rare earths with Ukraine, which they have tremendous value in rare earth, and we appreciate that. And we spoke yesterday with, as you know, President Putin and President Zelensky, and we would love to see that come to an end, and I think we're doing pretty well in that regard. So hopefully we could save thousands of people a week from dying. That's what it's all about. They're dying so unnecessarily, and I believe we'll get it done. We'll see what happens, but I believe we'll get it done. Today we take a very historic action that was 45 years in the making. In a few moments, I will sign an executive order to begin eliminating the Federal Department of Education once and for all. And it sounds strange, doesn't it? Department of Education, we're going to eliminate it. And everybody knows it's right. And the Democrats know it's right, and I hope they're going to be voting for it, because ultimately it may come before them, but everybody knows it's right, and we have to get our children educated. We're not doing well with the world of education in this country, and we haven't for a long time. And we're pleased to be joined today by the woman who I chose because she's an extraordinary person. And hopefully she will be our last Secretary of Education, Linda McMahon. Linda, thank you. Thank you very much. That's another interesting statement. It's an interesting opening, right? But it's true, and people, it's been amazing how popular this has been. I tell people that this is what I'm doing today, and they say, oh, it's about time. Everybody says it. Republicans and Democrats have said it. They're all saying it. Also with us are some terrific people. Governors Greg Abbott. Greg, thank you very much. Governor Ron DeSantis, thank you very much, Ron. Mike Braun, congratulations on your victory, Mike. That was a big one. Mike DeWine, thank you very much, Mike. Jeff Landry. Jeff, thank you very much, Jeff. Bill Lee, thank you. Governors, all governors. Brad Little. Brad, thank you very much. Where are you, Brad? Hi, Brad. Jim Pylan, thank you very much, Jim. And Kim Reynolds. These are all people very interested in education. And I even see Dan Patrick over there, my friend Dan Patrick. We're joined also by Representatives Tim Wahlberg and Virginia Fox, Rick Allen, Michael Rulli, and again, Dan Patrick. Thank you very much, Dan. You've been a great friend of ours. And State Attorneys General Ken Paxton. Ken, I see you there. Andrew Bailey. Andrew, what a job you've done, Andrew. You have some good cases going. You've done a great job. Thank you very much. And co-founder of Moms for Liberty, Tiffany Justice. She's been a hard worker. Thank you. Thank you, Tiffany. When President Carter created the Federal Education Department in 1979, it was opposed by members of his own cabinet, as well as the American Federation of Teachers, the New York Times editorial board, and the famed Democrat Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan. History has proven them right, absolutely right. After 45 years, the United States spends more money on education by far than any other country, and spends likewise by far more money per pupil than any country, and it's not even close. But yet we rank near the bottom of the list in terms of success. It's an amazing stat. Those are two stats you don't want. The most money spent per pupil, and you're at the bottom of the list. And that's where we are, like it or not. And we've been there for a long time. 70% of 8th graders are not proficient in either reading or in math. 70%. 40% of 4th graders lack even basic reading skills, can't read. Students in our public elementary and middle schools score worse in reading today than when the department opened by a lot. In Baltimore, 40% of the high schools have 0 students who can do basic mathematics. Not even the very simplest of mathematics. I said, give me your definition of basic, and they're talking about like adding a few numbers together. Despite these breathtaking failures, the department's discretionary budget has exploded by 600% in a very short period of time, and it employs bureaucrats in buildings all over Washington, D.C. And as a former real estate person, I will tell you, I ride through the streets of Washington, and it says Department of Education, Department of Education. I said, how do you fill those buildings? It's crazy what's happened over the years. I'm pleased to report that after offering these federal employees 2 generous buyout options, and they were very generous, and they're good people, but they were very generous. My administration has initiated a reduction in force, and we're already cutting numbers that were really surprising to a lot, that we were able to do it so successfully. And we've cut the number of bureaucrats in half. 50% have taken office, which is great. Thank you. Under the action I'm taking today, a small handful of Democrats and others that we have employed for a long time, and there are some Republicans, but not too many, I have to be honest with you. But the department's useful functions, and such as, and they're in charge of them, Pell Grants, Title I funding, resources for children with disabilities and special needs will be preserved, fully preserved. They're all going to be so. If you look at the Pell Grants, it's supposed to be a very good program, Title I funding and resources for children with special disabilities and special needs. They're going to be preserved in full and redistributed to various other agencies and departments that will take very good care of them. And that's very important to Linda, I know, and it's very important to all of us. But beyond these core necessities, my administration will take all lawful steps to shut down the department. We're going to shut it down, and shut it down as quickly as possible. It's doing us no good. We want to return our students to the states, where just some of the governors here are so happy about this. They want education to come back to them, to come back to the states, and they're going to do a phenomenal job. You know, if you look, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, I have to tell you, I give them a lot of credit. China's top 10. And so we can't now say that bigness is making it impossible to educate, because China is very big. But you have countries that do a very good job in education. And I really believe, like some of the governors here today, from states that run very, very well, including a big state like Texas, but states that run very well are going to have education that will be as good as Norway, Denmark, Sweden, and those top, Finland, those top countries that do so well with education. I think they'll do every bit as well. And what do you think about that, Governor? Do you agree? I think so. Ron, do you agree? I think so. Florida? Iowa? That's right. I really believe that. They'll be as good as any of them. And then you'll have some laggards, and we'll work with them. And we can all tell you who the laggards will be right now, probably, but let's not get into that. But we'll work with them, and we're going to make them, they'll do a job. I think they'll do a job, and they'll go to sections of the state. For instance, New York, you'll have a Manhattan, and you'll have a Suffolk County, and you'll have Nassau County, and you'll have Westchester County. You'll do 4 or 5 or 6 of them. You have upstate New York, and those counties, I think, are going to do very well. And I think ultimately Manhattan should do very well. But we'll break it down into sections, and I think it'll be really, really good. And they're going to be probably the tougher ones, but I think they have a chance to do really well. But we're going to be returning education very simply back to the states where it belongs. And this is a very popular thing to do, but much more importantly, it's a common sense thing to do, and it's going to work. Absolutely, it's going to work. And I can tell you from dealing with the governors and others in the state, they want it so badly. They want to take their children back and really teach their children individually. Probably the cost will be half, and the education will be maybe many, many times better. So we look forward to this. I want to just make one little personal statement. Teachers, to me, are among the most important people in this country, and we're going to take care of our teachers. And I don't care if they're in the union or not in the union. That doesn't matter. But we're going to take care of our teachers, and I believe the states will take actually better care of them than they are taken care of right now. They'll work all sorts of systems and even merit systems. Those great teachers are going to be maybe a little bit better rewarded, or maybe that's the way it should be, but the states are going to make that decision. But we're going to love and cherish our teachers along with our children, and they're going to work with the parents, and they're going to work with everybody else, and it's going to be an amazing thing to watch, and it's really going to be something special. And Linda, you're presiding over something that's so important, and you're going to do a fantastic job, just like you have your whole life. I know your whole life I've been watching you. I've been watching you for a long time. She's had nothing but success. So it's tremendous to have you, and hopefully you won't be there too long, but we're going to find something else for you, Linda, okay? So this will conclude what we are talking about with respect to our most cherished group of people, and that's our children. We want to have our children well educated. We want them to love going to school. We have examples of it. Look at those beautiful, bright-eyed faces. They are so smart. They're so smart. And with that, I'm going to come down, and we're going to sign a very important document, and we're going to be on our way. People have wanted to do this for many, many years, for many, many decades. And I don't know, no president ever got around to doing it, but I'm getting around to doing it. So thank you very much. Should I do this? Should I do it? Yeah? Okay. I think so. We have pens for you too, special pens. I'll take this one out. I had one that was very lucky. I signed another document that turned out to be very good for the country, and I said, let's use that same pen. I don't know. Is anybody superstitious? Ron, are you superstitious? Let's use that same pen. Okay. Can you come up just to say, come on up? That's good. It's very important. You're a big factor here. Good luck. Good luck, Lynn. Thank you, everybody, very much. Good luck. Thank you.
Okay, we got music playing now, and I guess he's not going to take questions. Let's see. Well, that's that. All right. Sometimes I'll take questions at these things. There you go. So, President Trump signing an executive order, he said, to begin eliminating the Department of Education. By the way, just to remind people, we talked about this earlier, most of the money spent on education in the United States is spent by the states, and the states are in control of the curriculum and the graduation requirements. All right, what do you guys think? What did you guys think? We have to talk a little about the NTSB briefing, too. I want to hear from you. At Lookner on X, I'm going to read some of your comments right now. Thank you, by the way, McLean33 and Bebop and Rocksteady, and also Red Squirrel 82, all that's random, and Fox 250R, and Chris Canada Quebec City, and PZ Papa Zulu for your support, and Lidwine Elizabeth. Thank you. Let's see here. Jake's Online says Linda McMahon is like being cast for a role for a character that dies in the first scene. Yes, as President Trump said, I have some more footage I can show you. Hold on, I have a little more footage I think I can show you. Wait one moment here. One moment. Do I have this? Or did they end it? Oh, hold on. Yeah, I have some more video I can show you of what's going on, the aftermath in the room. Here, that's the room right there. So, hold on. I see Ron DeSantis is there. It's Ron DeSantis.
He can't fully show it down. We just start over. Don't make it more complicated than it has to be. I'm here inside the
Yeah, I was mentioning President Trump said he hopes that Linda McMahon will be the last Secretary of Education.
shut it down with this version of pen because it was created by Congress and therefore would have to be eliminated by Congress.
I'm going to talk to you guys about this as we look at the video there. Let's see. KK says he cannot legally do away with the Department of Education, only Congress can. That is true. However, my understanding is that he's going to greatly reduce the Department of Education. They already cut about, there's about half the staff there that there was at the start of President Trump's term. So definitely going to reduce what the education department does, maybe transfer its functions to other departments. Coin Hunter says it's obviously not working. Something needs to change. Reggie Jenkins says parts of it will remain, but it will be greatly reduced. We'll talk about the NTSB press conference in a second, but we just saw this. Wayne Peconin thinks this will hurt underfunded school districts, red areas. Lawrence says no more critical race theory. Hasseldehoff says, I think Hasseldehoff said the world is laughing at us. Again, I just want to remind people that, hold on a second here. That state school boards set the curriculum, graduation requirements, and pay the lion's share of K through 12 education. That is from a Washington Post article, but we've read other articles with similar assessments. Most funding from education already comes from the states, and local, not federal, local educational administrations determine the curriculum. One of the articles said about what? Was it about 14%? Yes, AP says around 14% of public school budgets, often for supplemental programs for vulnerable students, comes from the Department of Education. Some of the main things they fund are support for, hold on a second here, high poverty schools, support for students with disabilities, and federal loans. Carol says they used to fund. Well, I'm not clear. I have to. I'm not sure exactly what the executive order said. I'm going to see if I can. Maybe they sent something out about it. The White House. I haven't seen the email with the executive order in it yet. It's been unclear, like exactly how, because the administration is saying a lot of their functions they're going to keep a lot of what the Department of Education does with the funding. So how are they going to do that in a greatly reduced Department of Education? I don't know how exactly all that's going to work. Oh, by the way, so as you're looking at some video from the President Trump event, where he has already left, the NTSB, we watched the NTSB press conference on the Baltimore Bridge collapse when the shit hit the bridge last year, and the NTSB said that the state of Baltimore, I think it was, or Maryland Department of Transportation, some governmental entity there did not do some sort of study of the bridge, and that if they had done the study, they would have seen that it was at an excessive risk of collapse from a ship collision. And they also said that there are a number of bridges in the country that they are urging the owners of the bridges, which sounded to me like a lot of government entities, to do these studies to figure out what the risk level is of the bridges collapsing from a ship collision, and if they are above the recommended level, to take steps to fix that. That was the big emphasis of the NTSB press conference. Yes, I have a press release right here. If you see this right here, look at this. NTSB recommends 68 bridges in US be evaluated for risk of collapse from vessel strike. The NTSB recommended that 30 owners of 68 bridges across 19 states conduct a vulnerability assessment to determine the risk of bridge collapse from a vessel collision, part of the ongoing investigation into the collapse of the Key Bridge in Baltimore last year. The NTSB found that the Key Bridge, which collapsed after being struck by the container ship Dali on March 26, 2024, was almost 30 times above the acceptable risk threshold for critical or essential bridges, according to guidance established by the American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials. See that right there? What caused the collision? They're still investigating the whole event. The ship lost power, but they're still investigating what happened. They have not given a final report on that. I actually want to post this real quick. Did they post about it? Let me see something here. Give me 1 minute. We're gonna take some more comments from you guys. All right, so it's the headlines from that. It says NTSB recommends 68 bridges in US be evaluated for risk of collapse from vessel strike. And then they say, what is it here? The NTSB found that the Key Bridge, which collapsed after being struck by the container ship Dali in March of last year, was almost 30 times above the acceptable risk threshold for critical or essential bridges. Okay. If you missed it, we had that press conference for you. I mean, there might have been a little more that we didn't see, but we were into the Q&A portion. Isn't container ship 2 words? Yeah, hold on a second here. All right. Okay, hang on a moment here. Hang on, everyone. We're going to talk about the executive order. We're going to take some of your comments right now. Captain Jerry Donnelly says, my parents were my education department. Thank you, Captain Jerry Donnelly, for your support. Here you can see this. Trump signs order aimed at dismantling the Department of Education. President Trump ordered his administration on Thursday afternoon to dismantle the Department of Education, looking to achieve a top campaign promise, although the White House acknowledged the agency can't and won't entirely be dissolved, flanked by more than a dozen students at school desks. That was this whole thing, where they had kids at school desks, and then before he signed the order, he said to the kids, should I sign it? Or should I do this? Something like that. And then it looked like they all had things to sign, and then everybody held up what they signed. Anyways, flanked by more than a dozen students seated at school desks, Trump signed the long-anticipated executive order in the White House. Trump said he would get rid of the department once and for all. We're going to eliminate it, and everybody knows it's right, he said. However, the order's immediate impact is unclear, since only Congress can eliminate a federal agency. Also, the federal government does not set school curriculum. That's long been the purview of states and the local school districts. Again, the federal government does not set school curriculum. Trump's directive comes after the Education Department sent more than 1,300 employees termination notices last week as part of large-scale reductions in force across the federal government led by the DOJ agency. It is the smallest federal agency there is, I believe. Between cuts and voluntary buyouts, the Trump administration has trimmed the Education Department's workforce to half, from more than 4,000 employees to roughly 2,000 workers since the start of his term. Republicans have long accused the federal government of having too much influence over local and state education policy. Trump told reporters last month he hoped McMahon would put herself out of a job. Reuters says Trump and other Republicans have often relied on data from the Education Department's research arm, a branch the administration has reduced to a skeleton staff. This has raised questions about how officials will track school progress after Trump's updates to the department. Ronan says too bloated. Frank Benlin says President Trump has spoken. MB thinks the teachers' union is the problem. Hang on a moment here. I'd like to get you a little more analysis here on how this is actually going to work with the Education Department. Give me one moment. Give me one moment, please. Here's a little some facts about the department. This is from the Washington Post here. If you go down here, it says the Education Department administers federal grant programs, including the $18.4 billion Title I program that provides supplemental funding to high-poverty K-12 schools, as well as the $15.5 billion IDEA program that helps cover the cost of education for students with disabilities. And the department oversees the $1.6 trillion federal student loan program and sets rules for what colleges must do to participate. A senior administration official said yesterday that these programs, which make up the bulk of the education department's budget and work, will not be touched. It's not clear what that means or how the White House expects significant change without touching these programs. Yeah, so that was something I was wondering too. If it's true that the programs that make up the bulk of what they do are not going to be touched, then how much change is there really going to be? Unless, I guess, by not touched, you mean like something like, well, they'll give the same amount of money, but it'll just go to the states like in block grants, and that there'll be no, the states can do what they want with it or something. Maybe the idea is it's the same amount of money, but it can be spent. There's less guidance on how to spend it or something. I don't know. Then you'd also wonder, in theory, if all of these employees who are getting laid off, will it work just as well as before? Will that money go out just as well as before? I have no idea. I don't know if it's going to get in the way of these type of programs to not have those employees there. Bill McConnell thinks it won't be wasted any longer, less hands touching and stealing the money. Bill is arguing that some people are stealing the money. Seabreeze says, is this a good thing? Our viewer Dries Saleh says, it's also naive to make cuts without due diligence. White House spokesman Aaron Harrison Field said in a statement that the executive order will empower parents, states, and communities to take control and improve outcomes for all students. The order is expected to reference low test scores as a justification for reducing the federal role, but administration officials have not explained how reducing the federal role in education will improve outcomes. The Washington Post says Trump has repeatedly cast the effort to reduce the federal footprint as returning education to the states. He did say that today, returning education to the states. In fact, says the Post, education has long been the responsibility of state local governments, which provide about 90% of the funding and set most of the rules. The Education Department, the U.S. Education Department of the federal government, does not dictate curriculum or have a hand in most school policies. Carol O says, sending power back to the people. Mudkip's mom says, why attack education? It's a terrible decision for our kids' future. Cindy Lee thinks, I think it will be just fine. The school system was fine before 1980 when President Carter created the department. Their website is up. Oops, sorry. Oops, sorry. I don't know how much their website has changed recently. Let's see here. Hold on a second here. I was looking to see if the website had a summary of their various programs. One moment here. Oh, what we do. That's the mission statement. They this is from that's not a government website. This is from the Department of Education's website. It says, education is primarily a state and local responsibility in the United States. It is states and communities, as well as public and private organizations of all kind, that establish schools and colleges, develop curricula, and determine requirements for enrollment and graduation. A substantial majority of educational spending at all levels comes from state, local, and private sources. That means the federal contribution to elementary and secondary education is about 8%, which includes funds not only from the Department of Education, but also from other federal agencies, such as the Department of Health and Human Services Head Start program and the Department of Agricultural School Lunch program. They say they target their funds where they can do the most good. Now, this is the previous. I assume this is an older site. I don't think this is a recent. I don't think this site got posted in the Trump administration. Anyways. Susie B says, I'm on the fence about this. Don't know who to believe. I guess we'll find out. Oh, here's, yeah, what does the department do? So this is just a quick summary by the Washington Post. They administer federal grant programs, including funding for high poverty schools, funding to help the cost of education for students with disabilities. These programs come with rules, and conservatives have talked about alternatives that would give states more freedom to spend it as they choose. I don't know the specifics about those rules. They also oversee the $1.6 trillion federal school student loan program, and it runs the Pell Grant program, and the Pell Grant program is awarded to undergraduates designed to assist students from low-income households. That is a college loans program designed to assist students from low-income households, okay? They also run achievement tests dubbed the nation's report card. They collect state statistics on enrollment, crime in school, staffing, and other topics. Also, the Education Department is charged with enforcing civil rights laws that bar discrimination in federally funded schools on the basis of race, sex, and other factors. It is the smallest staff of any federal department. About half of its 4,100 employees have now been cut. Will all of these things continue to be done? Will some of those functions stop happening? Will they be done by other government authorities, either federal or local, besides federal? Well, I guess the money's got to come from federal, so it's got to be. But you know, what role? What will other departments take over these roles? Will some of those roles go away? I don't know. I have no idea. I have no idea. But that at least is a summary of what they do and what they don't do. They don't set curriculum, basically. Curriculum is local responsibility. And most of the money. Tom Jewett thinks it gets rid of a federal bureaucracy that doesn't need to be there and we don't need to be paying. Let's see here. Okay. I think Chuck Schumer released. AZ Intel said Chuck Schumer released a statement. Hold on. Chuck Schumer, Senate Democratic leader, posted, attempting to dismantle the Department of Education is one of the most destructive and devastating steps Donald Trump has ever taken. This will hurt kids. This horrible decision by Donald Trump will be felt by teachers, parents, school leaders, and in the quality of education our children receive across the country. Property taxes will go up while the quality of many schools will go down. Presidents cannot make departments and they cannot eliminate them either. Only Congress can do that. The courts must act to uphold the rule of law and stop Donald Trump's tyrannical power grab. All right. Scott Hare, who wrote in, our viewer Scott Hare says the elimination of the department is a long time coming. It was a waste of money and unneeded as all states have their own departments of education. There are many programs and methods of learning that hinder student advancement, and this move will hopefully give parents more control as well. That's what our viewer Scott Hare said. Tony Del Monte says music programs should be kept in schools and should not be cut. That's from Tony Del Monte. Jason Santoro says, does this mean I won't have to pay my student loans? I don't believe, I didn't hear anything that I haven't heard any reporting saying that's part of the executive order. Hang on one moment. Oh, by the way, I don't need now on there. So I think oops, sorry. All right, so we've been talking about these two stories, the NTSB press conference and also Trump signing an executive order to begin eliminating the Department of Education. And give me one moment here. Okay, so, there's other stories going on, and it's possible we would cover some other stories later on. But I think for right now, I might wrap up this live stream. And I'm going to be keeping an eye on the news. Again, I know there's a bunch of other things going on, so we might do another stream tonight. I'm not sure. But I'm going to be keeping an eye on everything. So we'll see. We will see. By the way, the Delmer J. Santesson show thinks it's a brazen attempt to undermine our youth's educational standards. Okay, anyways, so I'm going to wrap this up now. I'm going to eat something. It's possible we'll do a stream later. It just depends on the news stuff. We'll see. We're going to be covering more news soon. I guarantee you of that. So, yes, if you missed the press conference on the bridge, you can rewind. If you missed President Trump's event, you can rewind and watch it. I really appreciate you guys being here for this live stream. Subscribe, follow Agenda Free TV. We cover all kinds of live breaking news without an agenda. Agenda Free TV. And also, I will post updates on my X account, which is at Lookner, right here. So follow me over there on X if you're on X for breaking news. And also sign up for the notifications, because I don't know in advance when we're going to go on live most of the time. They're going to be big breaking news and I rush on the air. So if you don't want to miss a stream, if you want to get a notification sent to you, and it's free, the notifications, sign up for our notifications. They work really great. We have our own system. It's on Discord. The mods will post the link to the notifications. You can find it in the description of this video on Facebook and YouTube as well. Make sure you sign up to those so you don't miss a stream. I really appreciate you guys being here. Thanks for sending your comments in, letting me read them, and watching the channel. Oh, by the way, thanks to Warrior Sunflower. I owe a couple thank yous too. Warrior Sunflower, thank you. JRW Fan, thanks for your support. And Ryan Teasdale, our member. JRW Fan says, something has to change with education. Let's shout out our moderators too. Oh, Larry Picklejar. Thank you, Larry Picklejar, too. Larry Picklejar says, let's see if this same room full of GOP elites are high-fiving after they lose the House or Senate in the midterms. Wow. Thank you also, Sven Christensen, for the gift sub. Thank you, Sven Christensen. Thanks to our moderators. You are awesome. We couldn't have the chats without our moderators, so I really appreciate them being here. Ruth Grafasi, Beth Mythical, and our other YouTube moderators, thank you. Linda Belk, Larry, Misha over on X. Hang on a second here. Thank you to our moderators on X and also our Twitch moderators. I Got That Fire, Matthew Kohai 3, Sir Surly Dev, Matthew Kohai 3, Surly Dev, all of our Twitch moderators. Thanks for being there today. Also, Kay Lowry Body, Margaret Riley over there on Facebook. Thank you as well. And thanks to everybody who supported the channel, who supports the channel. Thanks to everybody who donated. That's super nice of you guys. I really appreciate that. I think I thanked everybody. Also, shout out to Roger Stallworth for subscribing over there on Facebook. Robert Rial II, Rita Evans Lang, Facebook subscriber, and Kay and Margaret who subscribe. Thanks for your support of the channel. That's what keeps the channel on the air. But if you ever want to donate, you go to agendafree.tv, agendafree.tv. But thank you so much for all of your support. Thanks, Charlotte Webb, for moderating, too. By the way, we do have a chat where you can chat with other viewers when we're not live. A lot of our viewers like doing that. It's on Discord. Check out the Discord chat. It's free. It's the same link as the link to the free notifications. So check out the Discord chat. Thanks to our Discord mods, too, for all you do. Discord mods, thank you. Hey, another good way to find out when we're going live is to follow us on X at Agenda Free TV. I always post there when we're going live. I post updates about the channel. So if you're on X, follow us at Agenda Free TV. Also, for those of you who watch on YouTube, I would suggest subscribing. Not subscribe. I would suggest turning on the notifications on YouTube. Another good way to find out when we're live over there. To do that, turn on the notifications in YouTube. Well, you have to subscribe first, and then what you do is you click the notifications bell, and you choose all notifications. If you subscribe on YouTube, make sure you got the bell clicked, and you've chosen all notifications. Hey, so I thank the Facebook subscribers, Twitch subscribers. Thank you, Twitch subscribers, for all your support for the channel, like Emilian, Shaggy, Matthew Kohai 3, Dren Crow, Wall Street Shaggy, Uncle Floyd GG, Rob from HD, Sven Christensen, Allistic, Redefine Happiness, Massachusetts Guy, Tater Mong, all of our other Twitch subscribers, Douthis. Thank you, Twitch subscribers. And our YouTube members, thank you so much. Confidence in God, Evelyn in Maine, UV Lightning, Jesse's Girl, Eric Johnson, Dolphin Burgers, Terry Rose, Andrea, Lego Mike, Queen of the South, Raven Knight, JK Cinar, Just Me, Beam Me Up, Paul Tissue, Firestar the, Chuck IRL, Music Muse, Dolphin Burgers, Slot Lady, Walrus, Rain Tarrant, Lethal Old Fart, Evelyn H., Jerry Kovacs, Barry, Dr. McRib, Leslie Ladyhawk, I said Walrus, Babs, all Queen of the South, all of our YouTube members, thank you. Firestar the, Ethereal Planet, Riri Patton. And thanks to all of our other viewers. Really appreciate you tuning in. Jen for Humor 34, Girl Rush fan, Paul, Jersey, Texas, our member, Simp Nasty Scrimp, Skip Foo, OMP Cyclops, David Karshan, Lori Nance, Jamie Rowland, Paula Thompson, thank you. Michelle Batten. All right, so Robert Rial says, Pell Grants helped get me through school. All right, guys, so we're wrapping up this stream. May have some coverage later. We'll certainly be covering more news soon. But thank you for joining us for this live stream. That is it for now. Thank you so much for watching. We will see you soon with more live breaking news coverage right here at Agenda Free TV.